much. That was beautiful, Andras. Okay, thank you. Well, we're actually really focused today. Okay, so we're sitting. Thank you so much. That was beautiful, Andras. Okay, thank you. Well, we're actually really focused today. Okay, so we're sitting.
The other side of you, do the same. All right. Is a non-polluting energy intra-dependent eco-city. Wrap your mind around that. Which is actively regenerating the local ecosystem. So we want to create, within the tenets of what an eco-city is, we want to provide, or the city to provide energy. Imagine all the houses as independent energy sources. Imagine that the industries are supported by truly resilient, sustainable power sources that are non-polluting.
Education. So Ashland can become an educational platform for people who come here to experience these systems and see their working models. Then we furthered the whole entire progress of green energy, not just in our community, but also globally.
So,
all of the issues that we're facing as a culture on this planet. And these things need to be brought into the universities for students to be actively, not just studying, but participating in the transformation. If you look at the situation on this planet, you'll see that there's a lot of power in the monocore. It's powering out, all of the infrastructure that we have now that's causing such damage. And the other power system is us as a people, as a community. We have inventors on board here. We have community activists. We have people who run NGOs in our community. And all of these people are great resources for us to create change. In conjunction with the fire of the students who have the time and they're getting paid basically to go to school to learn and to generate a new future for our planet. That is where we need to address. So
looking at humane policy. Humane policy runs through the current of all of the other groups here because it's police and education and our whole systems and our corporations policies in business, policies individually, and policies collectively as government organizations. So what we came up with is kind of a vision and mission that we individually take responsibility for working collectively. Because working collectively is the only way we're really going to move things forward. We can work individually as best we can, but it's only when we can come together in a collective group with a common intent and purpose that we can make action happen at these levels. So as we come together and take our individual responsibility to work collectively, we vote for and elect people that implement ecocentric policies. And we also talk about, it's about, there's no separation between us and governments and us and policy leaders. We have to each step up into our best and offer our best to the collective for the implementation of this. We have to hold accountable ourselves and our collective community and officials. And then we individually take responsibility to work collectively to examine the existing programs and adopt successful policies. So existing programs, there are programs to end homelessness that are working, but they have to be examined and looked at how can we adopt them locally and we were looking at not just Ashland, but also the whole watershed, the greater region. And I think our table had a lot of people from the whole Oregon coastline in our group, not just local Ashland. So, and to adopt successful policies that empower and provide ecocentric services. We went with the term ecocentric because humane is included in that, but ecocentric might not be included in just humane. So we expanded it to be ecocentric. Services, safety, comfort, and education. And then our third was to just do it. It's that action we have to take individually to make it happen. Do you want to read the vision?
Okay. So our vision is communities and elected officials are inspired to work collectively to ensure human rights and needs are addressed and met. Community members interact in a cohesive way towards a mutual vision. And then our second page is actions.
And it's looking at humane policy. Humane policy runs through the current of all of the other groups here because it's police and education and our whole systems and our corporations, policies in business, policies individually, and policies collectively as government organizations. So what we came up with is kind of a vision and mission that we individually take responsibility for working collectively. Because working collectively is the only way we're really going to move things forward. We can work individually as best we can, but it's only when we can come together in a collective group with a common intent and purpose that we can make action happen at these levels. So as we come together and take our individual responsibility to work collectively, we vote for and elect people that implement ecocentric policies. And we also talked about, it's about, there's no separation between us and governments and us and policy leaders. We have to each step up into our best and offer our best to the collective for the implementation of this. We have to hold accountable ourselves and our collective community and officials. And then we individually take responsibility to work collectively to examine the existing programs and adopt successful policies. So existing programs, there are programs to end homelessness that are working, but they have to be examined and looked at how can we adopt them locally and we were looking at not just Ashland, but also the whole watershed, the greater region. And I think our table had a lot of people from the whole Oregon coastline in our group, not just local Ashland. So, and to adopt successful policies that empower and provide eco-centric services. We went with the term eco-centric because humane is included in that, but eco-centric might not be included in just humane. So we expanded it to be eco-centric. Services, safety, comfort, and education. And then our third was to just do it. It's that action we have to take individually to make it happen. Do you want to read the vision?
Okay. So our vision is communities and elected officials are inspired to work collectively to ensure human rights and needs are addressed and met. Community members interact in a cohesive way towards a mutual vision. And then our second page is actions and celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day that has replaced Columbus Day here in Oregon. Yay!
Yeah,
It's called First Nations Day.
First Nations
Oh,
Day.
is that what they're
Okay,
calling
so
it
we'll make sure we'll change that. First Nations Day. Reciprocal funding programs. So, you know, somebody mentioned microloans. There is no microloans available to him when he was trying to solve his housing problem, and his unhoused problem, and he was creating housing for himself.
And not just loans, but perhaps grants that could then be paid forward in a new way as that person is successful in what they've needed that money for.
And then no strings attached services. We all know, a lot of us know about not-for-profits that wind up having so many things that they have to either meet for government regulations or for their own board of directors. So, you know, basically no strings. We do the services and we're connected to the whole group. And we're offering them together with other not-for-profits.
Andras has been great, and we just kind of went through the ceremonial change process with what we see as the biggest out of balance condition, and we focus on the forest today because we had more interest in that. So the greatest out of balance condition is profit motivated logging.
Yeah.
And the root cause of that is capitalism.
We can't hear you back here.
Oh.
You just have to keep the mic to your mouth.
Right to your mouth.
Okay, so the out of balance condition for forest husbandry is profit motivated logging. That's the #1 condition that we named. And the root cause is capitalism as a value system. There are some other root causes as well. Just overuse of trees in our industrial world for our houses and our paper and everything is kind of beyond capitalism, just unnecessary. The emptying, what we're emptying is a lack of education, we're emptying out greed, and we're emptying out laziness. To reframe into our realistic ideal and our co-creative solutions. Do you want to talk about this?
Is the root cause. And a lot of people associate capitalism just with money or money exchange, and that's not really what capitalism is. And I think education on what capitalism is really one of the root issues. And monetary exchange is when, for instance, I grow raspberries, which is a commodity. I exchange that for money, and then I go buy other commodities for my subsistence. Whereas capitalism is when you take money and you buy commodities and you make profit from that. So it's going from money to money rather than from commodity to money. And of course, labor has always been what the capitalist has looked for, because through the low cost of labor, and all you have to do is pay for the subsistence of the worker, you can increase the value of your commodity through the use of the labor, because the added value of your commodity through the use of that labor is more than it costs you to the subsistence of the labor. But in this case with forests, it's even worse because we're dealing with raw resources. And the capitalists can go out and buy timberland and extract that resource for incredible profits. So it's really, the core issue is, once again, capitalism, and it's really understanding what that is as a society and challenging that system. But it's through first re-understanding what capitalism is. It's not just the exchange of goods for goods. It's the use of capital or money to make profit through exploiting natural resources and labor.
Active and stockholder based, then what you have is a profit motive that goes beyond the management of the land. So for example, if you took the carrying capacity of the land and looked at it ecologically, you could have a sustainable program that could last for thousands of years, but it may only employ like 10 people. And so the numbers have been inflated because it's become extractive, and it's just a temporary thing. So what we're seeing as the water systems suffer, as the land suffers in general, is that was once a viable potential industry if it was not based around extractive profit mongering, and instead looked at it in terms of like, how do we live with this land? And then, you know, that term good forestry looks good. And then suddenly the economics of it changed. So I think this is a big, broader question that just, I'm going to hand this back in terms of how all of our resource-based industries work.
Thank you.
Democracy that sets up, there's a requirement to spray the ground to get rid of the weeds. So we have a weed fuel load abatement issues, and there's tonnage of spray in the woods, in the watersheds, and also what the TID requires you to do to algaecide your water sphere for plant growing, and all the other requirements of how many tons of pesticide that these counties are contributing to our environment here.
Advertised as a safe alternative where the iscide, which may kill fungicides and or pests and or other herbs, so the root iscide is to kill. So that's why herbicides and pesticides and fungicides will all essentially leach back into river systems, all other precipitation, not only immense heat, but relative day heat evaporates water, which puts it puts a stream of current from bodies of water that we think are not affecting us and back into all the trees, which puts it back down to everywhere else. And everything is really much more interconnected than modern science tends to tell us. And anyway, neonicotinoids also have they still have the pesticides. They're just embedded into the seeds, and that's also causing not only super pests, but chasing an issue that is alternative to natural mechanisms, such as ducks and geese. Advertised as a safe alternative where the iscide, which may kill fungicides and or pests and or other herbs, so the root iscide is to kill. So that's why herbicides and pesticides and fungicides will all essentially leach back into river systems, all other precipitation, not only immense heat, but relative day heat evaporates water, which puts it puts a stream of current from bodies of water that we think are not affecting us and back into all the trees, which puts it back down to everywhere else. And everything is really much more interconnected than modern science tends to tell us. And anyway, neonicotinoids also have they still have the pesticides. They're just embedded into the seeds, and that's also causing not only super pests, but chasing an issue that is alternative to natural mechanisms, such as ducks and geese.
From the self-health care table.
Can you hear me? Okay, sorry. Self-health care table. So you heard from our facilitator this morning what we were up to. Part of what we were doing this afternoon is kind of adding some more pieces to our goal list. One of the things that came through was we were really wanting to have a sense of people's rights to have self-health care understood and supported through network group. So we added that to our umbrella idea of creating a natural healing center The Natural Healing Center right now is under discussion as to whether or not it should be a nonprofit and seek grants, or whether it should go from a grassroots approach. And so we feel we need further discussion about that. So we agreed to continue to meet once a month and start developing this. The other part of it was from our youth voice at our table. We wanted to create some allyship with some of you other folks here. For instance, this table here could help us with getting a group together to go to our local hospitals and ask them to add alternative healing means to the hospital. So that's where we are at this point, but is there anything else you would like to add?
Talking a lot about the idea of self-help care and sort of like the challenges that we face. Can everybody hear me okay?
Point it towards your mouth, not up to there.
Cool. All right. So we were just talking a lot about the challenges of self-help care and sort of like being able to provide resources for people to essentially help themselves learn nutritional and access to herbal medicines and to natural medicines and to alternative resources so that they can basically have the tools to help themselves. And just talking about creating more access to that through having sort of like more community-oriented clinics where
You have to aim it at your mouth.
Where herbalists and like naturopaths and MDs and acupuncturists and massage therapists and just really collective group could come together and split between volunteering their time and offering their resources to people on basically like a sliding scale so that people who can afford it can come and pay for it, and then people who can't afford it also will have access to those means. And so those were just some of the things we were thinking about, talking about, just trying to give access to that and to facilitate people's self-help. Talking a lot about the idea of self-help care and sort of like the challenges that we face. Can everybody hear me okay?
Point it towards your mouth, not up to there.
Cool. All right. So we were just talking a lot about the challenges of self-help care and sort of like being able to provide resources for people to essentially help themselves learn nutritional and access to herbal medicines and to natural medicines and to alternative resources so that they can basically have the tools to help themselves. And just talking about creating more access to that through having sort of like more community-oriented clinics where
You have to aim it at your mouth.
Where herbalists and like naturopaths and MDs and acupuncturists and massage therapists and just really collective group could come together and split between volunteering their time and offering their resources to people on basically like a sliding scale so that people who can afford it can come and pay for it, and then people who can't afford it also will have access to those means. And so those were just some of the things we were thinking about, talking about, just trying to give access to that and to facilitate people's self-help.
Vision, to be able to have a place where they could share knowledge, offer services, and support the community with awareness and education about self-help options. That could involve just about anybody, and there's so much here in our valley, as you all know, who know that.
Being the self-help care group, we were really wanting to facilitate people and empower people to find that information for themselves, you know, so offering classes on like nutrition and herbs and how to work with allopathic medicines and how to work, you know, properly in those ways. So we don't know the complete structure of how everything's going to look. Obviously, it's a really big thing to tackle and task, but again, we're really emphasizing on like self-help of people in the community, you know, so trying to just educate and figure out venue or venues to do that. So.
I want to encourage you as a collective energy mirror that's been part of this basket to lead the Eco Summit, that within each of your sectors, the grounding factor is your personal health, well-being, and the wholeness of your mind, body, and spirit. And each of your sectors are big, big energy sectors of work. And it's important that you manage your personal energy well and stay in your good health in order to do the big work that you're doing for the planet and what you're agreeing upon to move forward in a good way. So I encourage each of you to please, approach the self-health care table and enlighten us of your gifts in ways that you're willing to serve one another. My elders say we're here to help each other. That's why we're here. We're here to help each other on the journey. And the other piece of advice they say is that if everyone gives everything to everyone, then everyone will have enough of everything. And so please, manage your well-being in a really good way and support each other's sectors. Manage your energy well so you can continue to do the good work that you're doing for our Mother Earth and our Father Sky and our grandmother and our grandfather, of all the elements that make us whole. I thank you for your willingness to give your life energy here this weekend and to share everything that you've done at each of the sector tables.
7 of what everyone in this room probably knows to write down on our list. But the general opinion that we started with was that food was going to be an essential need for the community, and that needs to be done on a local basis, which was, of course, very similar to the name of our group, Local Foods, and that we would write down all the areas that we could that we thought needed attention, and so we did. My viewpoint, a very real need to create emergency supply needs of food and local food production, barring a whole source of different environmental issues that are coming at us. So the basic tenet of this was that we really need to do this, that this is more than what we'd like or what's politically correct or a little bit environmentally better. It's really downright essential if we want to survive. Maybe in a year, maybe in 5 years, but probably not much longer than that. So we went under the basis of how to produce food locally and all the substructures such as water and land and community involvement, working into the community law portions, regulations. All of this would be necessary. So it needs full community involvement. So I'm going to give Katie a little bit in terms of the general. We'll bounce back and forth.
We really did cover a lot of ground, and we ended up organizing it in several sheets of kind of the macro projects and the more local micro projects that we know about, the ones that we want to expand upon, and we actually then categorized it into that long-term, short-term, and right now. We had a couple of things come just synergistically out of it. Pamela Joy from Food Angels was here at our table, and a woman named Judy from Grants Pass. Now they're teamed up to create a Food Angels project in Grants Pass. So that's going to really help in North Valley to take the pressure off.
Kind of a one-stop shop information center for local agricultural resources, like a place where any gardener could get encouragement to be able to follow through with their plan to grow a garden. We really want to encourage everyone to grow something. I think there's a ton of literature out there that shows that not only is industrial agriculture not viable, but large-scale agricultural farms are also not the answer. Everybody's going to have to do some producing of their own. So just a center that would encourage everyone to begin to become producers, to normalize gardening as a normal family function, a normal function of the household.
So we spent a lot of time talking about how we could organize to create a center like this. And so it could start as some kind of a virtual situation like Joe's List, which maybe some of you from around the valley might be familiar with. But basically Joe's List, you can make a request or make a statement or say, have some interaction. And then Joe, this woman, not me, she puts that in an email serve, and everybody who's on Joe's List can read that and they can interact with one another. So that's one very easy, quick, rudimentary way to begin a community dialogue and to get the support and to also offer the support that people might need.
The proposals that come as a result of individual health and the consciousness of everything being connected, and then the understanding that we need to localize in order to really be resource efficient and don't further pollute and create a whole lot of strain on the environment and waste a bunch of resources. So the critical parts that would be proposed to the city of Ashland, I guess, are food, not lawns, a neighborhood recycling center, which is, I didn't come up with that. That's where I'm coming from. It's a pretty cool idea. You have these centralized little separate bins and the only requirement is that you bring it there and it's in your neighborhood. It's not far to walk from your house. You don't have to put everything in your car and drive it to the recycling center, which kind of defeats the purpose of saving resources. And the only requirement would be, back home where we have that in place, you wash your stuff and make sure it's clean so when they pick it up, they don't have further process to go through with dissecting or cleaning, so it's really like a responsible thing that, requires some responsibility on the individual to make that happen. And in turn, it's for free. It really cuts down on what goes into your can. And speaking of trash and recycling that stuff, we have a centralized compost system for the city that then can go back to, and that is specifically for organic compost only. So unfortunately, the non-organic stuff has to go in the landfill for that particular system to work out, so that actually people can pick up that compost. It should be maybe possibly distributed free or close to cheap or something like that, to then go back into local agriculture to produce food for the community, which then in turn I think you might want to talk about that part.
Many seminal pieces represented in the individual pioneers of our group, and I'm sure the same is true for every one of these pods. My view is we need to have a center for regenerative economy that will meld the efforts of those that are seeking to circularize our economy from a resource perspective, not merely in terms of the exchange of capital, but labor and ideas and land, and all resources must be pooled so that we are patronizing one another, closing the loops where we are losing capital by providing more of our own goods and services locally. This may involve resource mapping, akin to the work of the Solari group founded by Catherine Austin Fitz. If you've not availed yourself of her work, Solari.com is a good example of how communities can begin to do resource mapping and ensure that there's no capital flight, you see. But as far as the food piece is concerned, I'm also currently working on social finance and I'm going to announce this here publicly, although I'm technically not supposed to. Road Credit Union has agreed to begin offering microloans for food and farming only. This will be partially underwritten by the credit union and partially by Slow Money and some of our collaborators, so that we can begin to stimulate the rural side of our economy more. I don't want to take up too much time, so
where it's coming from and where we are directing it and how we are sustaining, basically creating for ourselves. And in other countries, we have massively productive ways of creating energy. In Japan, they have miniature trees that have small wind turbines that are 6 inches long, blow on, that will generate power. And they generate way more, if not, I think it's somewhere around 10 times the amount of power that wind turbines create. And they're very aesthetically pleasing. They can be put on the sidewalks. We could implement that directly into the city, and that would create plenty enough power for a lot of the daily things that are done. And then we can also implement kinetic energy into the kids' playgrounds and involve lots of...
Isn't that green power?
That's green power.
Green power. To actually make that happen is by grabbing the community and putting it into perspective of what they can do. And how we can do that is, what is one of the biggest things that everybody has been concerned about is the Ashland Plaza Restoration Project has been huge. And I know that a lot of people were really upset of how it was turned into the plaza that it was turned into. But we can create, this proposal is very real. This is what we can propose to the city. Instead of creating the Ashland Plaza back to whatever they want to create it, we can have it as an information hub. It is centralized downtown where everybody goes every day walking through that, and it could be a lush green grassy area with beautiful diagrams and a bookshelf with information that is micro exhibition, exactly. Many things that we can be involved with in the community that everybody's going to walk past every day and be like, hey, look, what's this?
Yeah, it would even turn people on that may not even have ever thought about, improving their gardening and irrigation situation and so on, and Oh yeah, by the way, everything in green and blue, that's what pertains to us. So orange bills, that's for the city, but this is really, hopefully we get to talk about this at some point.
Thank you for being succinct. Okay. Do you guys want to come up, or do you want me to come back to you? Okay. I was just going to say, I shared with Andrew just real quick on the topic of economy that I heard once that you're supposed to save a third of your income, spend a third of your income on your own needs, and tithe a third of your income or give it away to those who need it.
Thank you, Paige. We're getting at something that's really integral to everything that we're doing. And what really inspired me was our conversations were an embodiment of this co-creative field, this nexus of inquiry into what can bring us into the next level of leadership. We came up with an actionable solution to bring those principles into Ashland. There's a technology called Open Spaces, and our proposal is that we bring an Open Spaces conference into Ashland on stewardship. In resonance with the self-help group, the extension of that is stewardship as self-realization, as the understanding that everyone has an integral gift inside of them that will serve the entire organism if fostered, and in solidarity with social permaculture and systems thinking. Inviting all to the table, major stakeholders as well as marginalized community members, and bridging the perceived separation that we've indoctrinated ourselves with and put ourselves to sleep. That's a brief summary. It's very difficult to summarize what happened because it was so dynamic, and I think you said it was like herding cats. Right? Yeah. Driven facilitation model that we feel is an embodiment of the type of co-creative solutioning that we explore. And I would also add that one of the things that really inspired me about this group is we could have taken a top-down approach where we presented models and said, this is the way people have done it, but we didn't do that. We had the courage to go into a deeper conversation space, and what naturally and organically came out of that were the same principles that those models are based on. And I just want to highlight how important that is, because our culture right now is embedded in a thinking system which is completely tyrannized by outside authorities. So to re-autonomize ourselves so that what we are creatively coming to is coming from within is actually the biggest revolution and the one that can liberate all of your solutions to free this world. You can feel that? Yeah.
So, not in the nature of the proposal that Paige is so keen on us being able to spit out here, we have a recommendation that has been implicit in each presentation and explicit in a couple, which is the Eco Summit needs to be an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
This is just the first stage, first step. And I'd love to leave you with the image that what we are doing in this room is organizing a prison break. And if you need that to be a little bit more tangible, I'd say reach back into your VCR archives or figure out some way to stream The Great Escape.
My brain is really tired right now after the last couple days, but like, I think what we actually do have a model that we're exploring, but we also realized that we wanted to incubate the model before we present it to a larger audience. So that one thing that is happening is that we noticed that we're actually coming together as a group, and we might start meeting ongoingly to incubate an idea that is unformed and unpresentable right now, but very exciting to us. So that is one thing that's happening. Yeah, and we hope to present it to you.
Entrance is that yesterday we had quite a lively core group, and only 4 of us came back today, but the really lively conversation we had was about 10 or 11 finding that we don't know whether it's because we were right there by the door or whether there was some kind of energetic pull, but people sat down helter-skelter and really entered into this kaleidoscopic conversation that we were having in a quite wonderful way. So we think we modeled that, and that's why we want this to be an ongoing thing. Entrance is that yesterday we had quite a lively core group, and only 4 of us came back today, but the really lively conversation we had was about 10 or 11 finding that we don't know whether it's because we were right there by the door or whether there was some kind of energetic pull, but people sat down helter-skelter and really entered into this kaleidoscopic conversation that we were having in a quite wonderful way. So we think we modeled that, and that's why we want this to be an ongoing thing.
The Navajo Nation. I am of Choctaw, Mississippi Band of Choctaw, and which is translated to people. I said yesterday, and I will say every day, that the names that what we call ourselves, our identity, always is saying we're the holy people. We're a precious and holy and sacred child of the Creator, and so is everyone else. So what I'm teaching is cross-cultural, it is inclusive, it is practical in application to any land and any language, and can be translated to any land and any language. So how many of you were here yesterday? Almost everybody. So if there's anybody that did not get the Navajo Nation, I am of Choctaw, Mississippi Band of Choctaw, and which is translated to people. I said yesterday, and I will say every day, that the names that what we call ourselves, our identity, always is saying we're the holy people. We're a precious and holy and sacred child of the Creator, and so is everyone else. So what I'm teaching is cross-cultural, it is inclusive, It is practical in application to any land and any language and can be translated to any land and any language. So how many of you were here yesterday? Almost everybody. So if there's anybody that did not get phone is somewhere else, asking for feedback from yesterday so that I know what you want to say to me. And then I'm not converted to any belief system. So what I grew up with is the language of natural order. And you, all of you, every one of you also grew up in your body with the language of natural order, of the sunrise, sunsets, the equinox, the moon phases, and gravity, and women have the capacity built in to give birth to a child. These are the best examples of what I'm calling natural order, and I will talk about that in a little bit more detail. Someone else has the microphone. Well, there's a pathway out of what Einstein said, we cannot solve the problem with the same thinking that caused the problem. So is there anyone else that wants to give me feedback about what you registered or even object to? And then the receiver acknowledges. And then the person that's acknowledging sends, and then the receiver acknowledges. That communication, there is no conflict there. You follow that? The sender sends and the receiver acknowledges before sending. And in conflict, both are sending without acknowledgement. Okay, that's one principle of communication. 99% is that communication is 99% nonverbal, which is congruent. If I say to you, can I help you? And something is coming out of my mouth and I'm shaking my head, that's incongruent. So that 99% body language is nonverbal. So then you, and
title in which she speaks was a ceremonial process. And our Western thought has this expectation that smoke and prayers will be a part of what takes place. And I just wish to bring forward that the moment Tricia started speaking, we were in ceremony with her. And our original languages, wherever we come from an indigenous place, holds our original instructions of ancient wisdom. And what she's done for us is she came from a beautiful lineage that has these ancient instructions in an original language that has many, many different meanings in just one word alone. And she translated this into English for all of us so that she can convey the world view of the life in which she was raised in. And provided that to us, encapsulated in under 2 hours. So what she gave us yesterday was voluminous in a life learning that is an opportunity to, let's say, understand the Bhagavad Gita, the Vedas, the Buddhist teachings, the Ayurvedic teachings. And so she has presented to us in English, the Hojo worldview of the Diné, of the holy people of Diné. And I ask that it requires a lot of explanation in English, but to please open your hearts to a deep listening of this English language that's trying to be eloquently conveyed to you her spiritual worldview.
There's 2 thinking systems of win-lose, destructive and death choices, and there's win-win, constructive and life-affirming choices. You got that, right? And that we have a choice to say yes and no. And thus far we've been saying yes to to win, lose, and all come up with these wonderful ways that you use that creative imagination, and then you're going to carry that out, and then you're going to do peer education. It's going to go into your home, into your community, to your church, hopefully into your government. That is, it's exponential. So right now, when I look at that here, the person over there doesn't see what I see. All around this room, the person over there doesn't see what the person over here sees, the person over here. So that is, using our consciousness produces our perception of this object. That's why we have conflict over these centuries. We're using consciousness, produces perception, and then reality is relative to our perception. So then we're all fighting for our rights and our religion, our opinion, our theory, our philosophy, our belief system from our consciousness and perception. Then there's no spiritual morality. That's why you see then all the wars happening. Can you follow that? Okay, that's the thinking system that I'm telling you, it's in a triangle. So the triangle going up is win, the triangle going down is lose. So thus far, we're forced to buy the product and services that support the so-called rich, goes from the poor to the rich. But in our language, diagnostically, we could say it's very exact. The word tian means yi yah bahatzid. Watch out, be careful. Everything that's no good for you is spiritually impoverishment, spiritually and materially impoverished, but you could live in opulence and still be in spiritual impoverishment. Now, the thinking system that I'm teaching from, and that's what all I did was inform and clarify to the person that's asking me to be accountable to the fact that we're all traumatized, including me, is the solutions. The Navajo language is talking in an inclusive way so that we can call that our conscience. So we could say conscience produces indigenous wisdom and knowledge, and we're all indigenous because our body is the earth, we're water, 70% water. Fire is temperature and the air, in-breath, out-breath, photosynthesis, radiated to the physical sun, to the trees, and we have the in-breath and the out-breath. That's the Creator's breath, not our breath. And we come from there and we return to there, but we're fighting right here with the Creator's breath. So that's the fundamental basis of equality. So I don't know any more than you know. It's just that people are denying their oneness with Creator and creation. That's all that people are doing. You see how simple it is? And I'm asking people to give up that denial of our oneness with Creator and creation in such a way that we're using conscience, which is built in our whole brain thinking, and our whole brain thinking is where the creative solution is. So we have co-creative over here. And co-creative I will define for you because some of the feedback I got was, talk about power over. Yesterday I said, I'm here to talk about power within, from the Creator and creation, to have power with. And that's what eliminates the need for power over. So if you're all busy in a community, having power within, acknowledging and appreciating, having gratitude for power within from Creator and creation, and then you're having power with another precious child of Creator, then we don't need power over. We don't need brute force. We don't need external power, which is not real power. It's the bully that's the coward underneath, right? And so why are we afraid of the bully that is using fear to manipulate us? When, in fact, fear is a call for love and they cannot coexist. And guilt is a call for peace. They cannot coexist. So we choose love, we choose peace, and we choose abundance. And why would we choose fear and guilt and scarcity? And why would we go to Coyote and say, take care of the chickens? Coyote, please take care of the chickens. It's not Coyote's nature to take care of the chickens.
Well, kinda.
So,
Kinda it is.
That's one of our biggest beliefs, that let's go tell Coyote. Let's ask Coyote to take care of the chickens. Let's spend that time taking care of the chickens, taking care of each other.
Chicken.
Coyote doesn't eat the chickens. That's just another way to get it across. So I said, we don't even have a word for evil because the Creator didn't create evil. Humans spend 5 senses as a weapon against themselves and others. It's a slang word. It's not a real helpful word. It's slang. People don't know the origin of it. It means people who use their 5 senses as a weapon against themselves and others. How diagnostic is that? See? In actual order, to be in harmony within the earth, water, fire, and air, and earth, water, fire, and air, because we're in it and of it simultaneously. And so, Ehozen and Sahakes, that means holy thinking and clear and congruent thinking and whole brain thinking. So we put it in contemporary terms. If we put it into business, that would be our administration, but it wouldn't be top-down hierarchy or patriarchy. What it is the co-creative leadership. Co-creative leadership means we're thinking, it means with each other. Co-creative means with Creator first. Only then can I have this power within to have power with another person. Situational means that we need to design for the youth a safe and supportive environment for them to discover their inherent divinity, inherent sovereignty, connection with the Creator's will to love and goodwill, and also inherent gift. And then for them to give also healthy expression, and then the next sequential step for them to be rewarded for giving healthy expression to that. You understand that? Start with the little ones and give them the space for that. So then we have humane policy, co-creative leadership toward east. That's the teaching place there, because Indasya is everything created for a purpose. Nidya, where it was placed in the 4 directions. So that's what was placed in the east. And then the south will be, I put self-healthcare and green power because that is the training and that's the education. But first of all, schooling, you have to have foundation and a framework and a roof. You can't have them scattered, right? You can't have foundation and frame and the roof over there. So that's how you need to think that the foundation, schooling is not education. What I'm talking about is education. Schooling is the conditioning program for correlating income with schooling.
He was in the 6th grade. He got home. He went over to the writing desk and he got a piece of paper and a pencil. Went over and he sat down at the table and he was sitting there doing something on that paper. When his sister walked over there and she said, "Johnny, what are you doing?" He says, "I'm drawing God." She says, "You can't draw God because nobody knows what he looks like. They will when I get through. So you just gave yourself some cheap medicine. That's laughter. And we need that after this long day. We need that laughter. God bless you. You know, I stand here and listen to all the speakers. My heart is full because I grew up, I was taught that everything was sacred. The water, the air, the earth, the trees, the green, people, the animal kingdom. All of it was sacred. And just look at you. You're all doing the good things for that, all of them. All those things that breathe, you're doing it. My heart is full. And I appreciate each and every one of you so much for what you're doing. May it ripple out to where you live. That we can make a difference for the world, for you, for your family. I stand here, I was thinking as I walked up here, thanking all those old ones that took them all to make who I am. Giving them thanks for keeping me going. Because I think they crossed the veil and helped me to be as old as I am. Thank God, the same behind each and every one of you, you have the same people that have gone on. And you know what? When they went on to the Star Nation, they left us with their unfinished work. Thank you enough. But then here came 12 more voices of the International Grandmothers in 2004. Who do the work that I do too.